Chapter 2. Gianna Greco. Nothing ever happens around here. Figures. I finally get promoted to reporter at the Wolf's Eye Middle School newspaper, The Eyeball. After suffering through 6th grade as a gopher in the print shop, breathing toner up my nose until I sneeze, and ruining all my clothes with splatters of ink from spent cartridges, I've made it at last. No 7th graders ever make it to the reporting staff. My brother warned me about that. He's in 7th grade too, but he got held back a year, so he's been here longer. Ronnie never worked for the paper. He's not a joiner. But he's 100% right that the 8th graders treat this school like it's their own private club. The Eyeball editors barely tolerate me. If I expect to survive, I'll have to blow the doors off this place with a monster story. And where am I ever going to get that in a random dot on the map where nothing ever happens? Wolf's Eye has to be the most boring place on the face of the earth. We're too far from the city to be considered the suburbs, but too close to have small-town charm. We're not near the ocean, not in the mountains, and not in the plains. We're just sort of here. And our middle school, well, the only interesting thing about that was what a dump it is. The biggest argument in town is whether we should tear it down or just wait for it to collapse on its own. Except new schools are expensive, and people are divided over whether it would be worth it to spend the money or just keep fixing and patching the old doghouse. We're not the richest community in the world either. But from a reporter's standpoint, the worst thing about middle school in Wolf's Eye is how predictable it is. Take this bus ride, for instance. I've already memorized every inch of it because nothing ever changes. Left on Mosswood, right on Main. I close my eyes, but the route is still implanted in my brain. I feel us navigating the traffic circle, and bump! There's the pothole in front of the mall. A few kids board the bus here, but I keep my eyes shut. I already know who they are. Sophie Tonica, Ethan Ben-Levy, and Jackson Sharp. Yep, I can hear the high-fiving. Wherever Jackson goes, he moves through a storm of backslaps, handshakes, and fist bumps. If he wasn't so full of himself, I'd actually admire him. He's the rare middle school big man on campus who's as good in the classroom as he is on the sports field. Athlete and mathlete rolled into one. Even Ronnie likes Jackson, and Ronnie hates everybody. Anyway, I don't have to admire him. He admires himself enough for the both of us. I hear the sound of the door folding closed, and we're on the road again. 2 more pickups, full stop at the railway crossing, and then straight on. When the school bus roars into a wide left turn, I'm so caught off guard that I almost fall out of my seat. Grabbing hold of the bench in front of me, I open my eyes. We're heading down a narrow, tree-lined road that is definitely not on our route. Are we being kidnapped? Okay, that would be bad, but at least it'd have something to write about in the Eyeball. Busload of kids held for ransom. Or maybe, paratroopers arrest busjackers in daring rescue. Or even, something finally happens in Wolf's Eye. Entire town dies of shock. Where are we going, Mr. Milinkovic? Sophie calls. At least I'm not the only one who knows the route so well that the slightest deviation sets off alarm bells. New pickup, the driver tosses over his shoulder. Now everybody on the bus is paying attention. Something new happening in this town is so rare that the last thing you want to do is blink and miss it. We drive along a low stucco wall draped with ivy. Beyond it, I can make out small houses and low apartment buildings. It seems to be a condo complex, although I don't know this neighborhood very well. That's when I see the sign. The Pines, a community for seniors. We pull up to the main gate, where a group of about 10 people stands waiting for us. But here's the thing. They're all old. Gray hair, bald heads, canes, walkers. Not that there's anything wrong with being elderly, but what do they want with us? We're the bus to the middle school. The youngest member of this crowd would be going into the 8th grade. Check out the geezer squad, Ronnie comments from the back. That's another thing about my brother. He's always got something to say, usually something not very nice. Now we know where Santa hangs out when it's not Christmas, Jackson adds with a snicker. Then one kid steps forward. He's about our age, pretty tall and kind of round-shouldered, with very short medium brown hair and almost a military cut. Instead of a backpack, he's carrying a fancy briefcase, the kind lawyers and business executives use. He's obviously the center of attention among the old folks. The ladies hug him and fuss over him, and the men all shake his hand. The way everybody's acting, you would think he was setting off on a 6-month world tour. Nobody pays any attention to Mr. Milinkovic, who says, "Got a schedule to keep, folks." Then the new kid is climbing up the steps onto the bus. The first thing I notice is he's dressed all wrong. His pants look like suit pants, but not narrow and tailored and pressed with a crease. These are baggy pants with cuffs at the bottom, and sitting like drapery atop giant white sneakers. The waist is too high, secured by a tan belt roughly 10 sizes too big. He looks like a scarecrow, cinched around the middle. His collared shirt is tucked in. Like the shoes, it's whiter than white. In the pocket is a plastic protector with a lineup of pencils and pens. He wears a heavy cardigan over that, even though the temperature is supposed to hit 75 today. The whole outfit comes together like a bad orchestra falling into clashing discord. It's not that his clothes don't fit. They almost do. But the pants are too long, the shirt sleeves are too short, and the collar hangs limp even though it's buttoned all the way up to the top. A murmur begins to ripple up and down the aisle. A not too nice one that includes words like nerd and geek and weirdo. I'm not a fan of judging people by their appearance, but even I have to ask myself, what is this new guy trying to prove? He must know it's not Halloween. Doesn't he realize how odd he looks? The doors close and the bus pulls away from the pines. The elderly farewell committee stands waving. One slight gray-haired lady is dabbing at tears with a handkerchief. Walking gingerly in the moving vehicle, the new guy makes his unsteady way to an empty row and eases himself into the seat. I pick myself up and sit down on the bench beside him. Hi, I'm Gianna. Dex. The expression on his face, 100% misery. Well, maybe 95. The other 5% ticked off. He doesn't want to be here. Yeah, I get it, I tell him sympathetically. It's tough to be new, especially in a town like Wolfseye. Most of the kids here have been in school together since kindergarten. Where did you move from? I've lived in Wolfseye my whole life. Really? I ask. Did you go to private school before this? He shakes his head. I was homeschooled by Leo and Phyllis and Cyril, and Dex rattles off a few more names that don't ring a bell. Who are they? Tutors from high school? You just saw them, he says a little impatiently. You mean the old people? I blurt. They're my friends, he insists, and one of them is my grandmother. I've been living with her in the condo for more than 6 years. I can feel my eyes widening at the story he goes on to tell. Dexter Foreman is a 7th grader like me, but when he was 6, his parents took off on this international expat lifestyle, leaving Dex with his grandmother to grow up in a retirement village. I have a sudden flash of understanding about his clothes, which are so strange yet also strangely familiar. He dresses like my grandfather, bits and pieces from once snazzy outfits that are semi-retired, high waists, big clunky shoes designed for sore feet, a sweater because you never know when there's going to be a draft. This kid is 12 years old going on 80. Approaching a red light, the bus downshifts into a shriek grinding of gears and brakes. Dex grabs the seat back in front of him, holding on with white knuckles and closed eyes. I stare at him. Haven't you ever been on a school bus before? He's exasperated. Why would I go on a school bus if I don't go to a school? So why did you decide to switch from homeschooling to the real thing? I probe. He heaves a heavy sigh. I didn't. The truancy officer made me. Truancy? I have an instinct, a reporter's instinct. It buzzes when I sense there's a story to be told. Right now, it's vibrating like a guitar string. It's not truant to be homeschooled. Thousands of kids do it every day. I'm not officially homeschooled, he mumbles, embarrassed. What do you mean, officially? My grandma didn't want to fill out the paperwork to have a kid living in a seniors community, he explains. So she put that I was 60 instead of 6. And Bradford County never registered me for school because they thought I was too old. I sit forward. And how did they find out you were our age? He makes a face. According to county records, I turned 65 and they followed up to see why I never applied for Social Security. And they realized you've never been to school? I conclude. This story would be hilarious if it wasn't making him so sad. Some county bureaucrat asking why a senior citizen isn't on Social Security, and the answer is because he's really 12. That's what you get when you let the government snoop in people's private business, Dex complains. That's another old person thing, blaming everything on the government. In my family, you normally have to wait till Thanksgiving dinner for that. Not anymore. Suddenly, Dex slaps at the back of his neck. Ow! A tiny object drops onto the seat behind him, a paperclip bent into a C shape. I recognize it as a standard middle school ammo. All it takes is a rubber band to launch these things with deadly accuracy at some unsuspecting new guy. I stand up and glare accusingly at the rows behind us. Real mature, you guys. Who did it? Blank looks, except for one. My brother is cackling into the crook of his arm. So subtle. Cut it out, Ronnie, I snap. He responds with his trademark shrug, which brings his shoulders up to his stuck-out ears. The shrug suggests innocence, but the sneering grin that comes with it confirms that he's 1,000% guilty. Poor Dex, I think as I sit down again. He hasn't set foot in school and he's already caught Ronnie's attention. Yet, even as I'm thinking it, I feel my mouth forming into a smile. I woke up this morning a reporter with nothing to write about. But now the greatest story in eyeball history has just landed right into my lap. Can a kid who's never been to school and spent his entire life surrounded by senior citizens survive at Wolf's Eye Middle School? I wonder if they give Pulitzer Prizes to 7th grade reporters.